Well, hello folks, welcome to today's test ride video featuring the Kawasaki Ninja H2 SX. What a special machine I've got for you today. So the guys here at Sydney City Motorcycles have kindly let me take it out. I'm going to take it out for about half an hour and tell you a little bit about this supercharged beastie. So the H2 was a bit of a Concord moment for the bike industry. It was kind of totally unnecessary, but Kawasaki wanted to do it just to show people what they were capable of. And now they've come out with this SX version, which is supposed to be more of a sports tourer, a bit more focus on comfort, a little bit more focus on fuel economy, which sounds a bit crazy with a supercharged 1000cc bike. But yeah, let's get on, have some fun. Can't wait to tell you all about this very special machine. Let's go. Alrighty, here we go. Woohoo! Whoa, this is exciting. Alright, so what do you talk about when you're riding a supercharged sports tourer through a suburban traffic zone? Well, first of all, I would just like to say thank you again to Sydney City Motorcycles for making this possible. I mean, this is a pretty rare, pretty special bike, but they get these kind of bikes in. They often have them, so I'm lucky enough to be able to ride one of these H2 SXs. If you end up enjoying this video, give it a like or a thumbs up down below. The guys watch the videos, and it really helps me out if you let them know that you enjoyed the video. It's fair to say that this bike is a bit of a technical masterpiece, so I'm just going to chuck some specs up here on the screen now. A couple of people told me that that's helpful, so here's a few of the headline numbers for the H2 SX. And as you can see, they're pretty mind-blowing. This is no ordinary motorcycle. But initial impressions are pretty good. It's, the suspension's not too firm, controls are light. The throttle's rather sensitive, but that's probably not surprising. Given that this is a sports tour, I'm going to vary up the route a little bit today. I'm going to do a little bit more highway so that you can see what it's like romping along a highway. Preview, I reckon it's going to be pretty good. And then we'll do the usual stuff where I take it through some suburban situations, some sort of transit roads, all to give you a bit of a feel for how it stacks up. So up ahead here, I've got a right turn onto a kind of medium speed freeway, so that should give me a chance to show you what the acceleration's like on the H2 SX. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous because I'm expecting it is going to be pretty manic. Here we go. Sorry, Audi lady. Okay, it accelerated so fast that I didn't have time to grab another gear, so that was kind of an eye-opener, but I don't know if you heard it, I got a nice little whistle from the supercharger as well when I changed gears. That's a new one. Wow, well luckily we've got a few more opportunities to accelerate on this because I made a bit of a mess of that one. Like I said, it just kind of got away from me a little bit. So normally I would make a left turn there, but like I said, I'm going to add a bit more highway to this video just to give you a feel for what it's like in that situation. But I would usually splice in a bit of footage now of what the bike sounds like, so I'll do that because before I got going I took a sound clip of the H2 to give you a better feel for what it sounds like compared with the old GoPro. So here it is. So as you would imagine with a bike of this caliber, it is stacked with features. I got one of the guys at the shop to give me a rundown of the dash before we head off. yeah, we've got 3 levels of power control, we've got traction control, we've got cruise control, quick shifter. It's pretty loaded with features. You know, you've got the fully adjustable suspension here. I guess, like I said, everything you would expect on a bike of this caliber. Alright, now this is another freeway, so another opportunity for a little acceleration. Woo! I'm not too familiar with the engineering, but I'm guessing it's like a wastegate or something closing, but holy smokes, that is the coolest sensation when the wastegate snaps closed and you get that little whoosh from the supercharger. That is hilarious. Right, so here we are on a freeway, and this is supposed to be the H2SX's real domain, right? So what are my impressions of it at this point? Well, I'm getting quite a bit of wind on my face, but I think that's more because I'm super tall than anything to do with the windshield. The windshield's a good size. What I find interesting though is that the seating position is quite sporty. I'll splice in a clip here of me jumping on the bike so you can get a feel for it, but the bars, well, I guess there's 2 parts to that, right? My legs are definitely in a more sporty position. It's kind of cool actually, because it feels like if you started attacking some corners, you'd get plenty of lean angle, plenty of ground clearance, so there's that. But then when you get up to the top half of the cockpit, you know, your upper body, the handlebars are actually quite raised, so there's no strain on your back or your wrists. You sit quite upright, and then you just kind of tuck yourself down into the bubble as much or as little as you want. So it's pretty comfy in that regard. Then you've got this engine. At the moment I'm in 4th gear, sort of middle of the rev range, 6,000 RPM. And if I rewind the throttle, holy smokes, there is no shortage of power there. That is outrageous. Hello L-plater. Fancy a supercharged H2? So if you like to line up a nice long stretch of road and get on the throttle, oh wow, I think you're going to find this bike pretty addictive. This is outrageous. Another cool little feature on the dash here, it tells me how many kilometers per litre I'm getting instantaneously. At the moment, 15 kilometers per litre, but if I knock it up a gear or two, 16 kilometers per litre, 18 kilometers per litre, 22 kilometers per litre. Now that's what I get off my 850 Yamaha. So yes, you've got all this massive performance, but you're not really sacrificing heaps of fuel economy for it. They're actually using a lot of the smarts to make it a more efficient bike as well, which I think is a great feature. Yeah, that was really interesting, that highway stint, because you've got all this power under your right hand, but you don't feel like you have to use it, and you also don't feel like it's going to throw you off the back if you do. It's super refined. I'm really impressed with how clean and smooth the engine is. It's really impressive. All right, another freeway. Let's have some fun. Woo! Yeah, buddy. That chirp from the supercharger is never going to get old. I just can't get over how quickly you get up to a comedy over the limit speed. I think that's the only thing that's going to make this bike difficult, is it's going to require an awful lot of self-restraint or an awful lot of empty roads, one of the two. Anyhow, I think we've talked enough about the engine. It's fair to say that 200 horsepower is plenty. You will never be wanting for power. In fact, let's do another test. I'm now in 6th gear at 100 k's an hour. I'm doing 4,000 RPM. What happens if I wind on now? Same thing, just effortlessly clean acceleration. It's all a bit boring, really, isn't it? No, but I think that just goes to show how good a job Kawasaki's done on this. Even at 6th gear at low RPMs, the pickup is just completely smooth and linear and easy to feed in. In fact, I feel like unless you really wanted that surge of acceleration, you could just leave it in 6th gear and be done with it, because that would be adequate overtaking power for most situations. Anyway, I think you get the message with the engine. It's super refined, it's super fast. Effortless is the other word that comes to mind. It's just effortless. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about some of the other things I'm noticing with the H2 SX. Ride quality is a good one to start with. So the suspension on this bike, as you'd expect, pretty advanced, very well calibrated. You probably saw the hooks on the back of the bike. This bike does come with integrated panniers, so it's designed to carry a bit of a load on the back, and so not surprisingly it's pretty supple. These highways are not amazingly smooth, you get a lot of imperfections in them, and I'm loving how it's just soaking up the bumps, taking it all in its stride. But then so yeah, this is an expensive bike, but I'm pleased to say there is a real sense of occasion on this bike. It's a lot of people are looking at it. It's it certainly doesn't feel like your average motorcycle, and I'm having a blast so far. I feel like a 5-litre Mustang is not really any match for an H2 SX. One nice thing that I'm noticing at the moment is very smooth in this low speed traffic, and for a bike that makes so much power as well, I'm not noticing any heat soak off the bike either. You know, a lot of people worry on bikes with this much power that they'll be very warm in this slow speed traffic. Pleased to say, not the case with the H2. Typical Japanese engineering, I think they've got it beautifully sorted out, not even a hint. See, this is a great example of how refined the H2 is. I'm in 2nd gear now and I can snap the throttle open. And yeah, it accelerates, but it doesn't bite your head off. It's still very, very manageable. They've built a kind of safety factor into it where it won't just eat you alive at any mistake, and I really like that. Forget experience for a second, it just makes for a more livable, easy to get along with package. Little kid was pretty interested. There's 200 SX making whistling sounds here. I'm like, mate, that's a whistling sound. Okay, this is where I normally turn left, so I guess you could say this is where we resume our normal broadcast, which is kind of handy because I just realised how much concentration is required to navigate roads you don't know and try and talk about a motorbike. So luckily we've already talked about the engine quite a bit. I mentioned that the ride quality is lovely, even on these uneven roads with dodgy surfaces. The bike handles it well. It's not electric suspension. I know a lot of these high-end bikes these days, especially in the sports touring segment, have electric suspension. Kawasaki's opted to stick with manually adjusted suspension here, which I am totally okay with because I feel like it just keeps another level of simplicity and you still get all the quality that you need from the adjustment, so no big deal in my mind. A cool little feature I discovered just before, you've got this cool day-night toggle for the dash. So just at the press of a button you can just go between day and night. I like it. So I keep banging on about the tractability of this engine, but I'm stuck behind this car up here, and at the moment I'm currently doing 2000 RPM in 3rd gear, and watch this pickup. Completely smooth. I'm going to keep harping on about it, but this is a gem of an engine. It is so refined. I can't get over it. Now this is going to be quite humorous. The little left turn here, this is where I go and test the bike's low speed maneuvering. So you can imagine a fairly heavy sports tourer is probably not going to be very good at this. But for science, I must do it. So here we are, Carpark Test. Let's give it a try, shall we? I've got rear brake, fast idle, turning. Oh my god, I've done it! No feet down, people. Wow, okay, so that's another tick for the H2. Not that anyone is going to decide whether to buy an H2 based on its ability to do a U-turn, but I have to say that was amazing. Like, the rear brake is in a really comfortable place. The bars have a lot more steering lock than you would expect, and I actually managed to turn it around without putting my feet down. So hooray for me. Let's celebrate with a couple of windy corners. It actually feels a fraction heavy in the transition, but I guess the trade-off there is you get good stability in sweepers and higher speed turns. So you notice a little bit of heft there as you move the bike from side to side. It really is a sports bike in sports tourers clothes. You can munch along the highway on this thing, but then you jump into a couple of corners like that, and all the ergonomics still feel really good for sports riding, which is just amazing, really. It really is a bit of a do-it-all motorcycle, this one. Now, on a bike this fast, I would expect some decent brakes, right? And now's as good an opportunity as any because I don't have anyone behind me. So I'm going to wind it up to 80 kilometers an hour and try and stop near this red car. That was really good. What I was a little bit surprised about them was a fair bit of ABS intervention, but the combination of the really strong brakes and the Battle Axe S21 Hypersport tyres that are on it, that combination, as good as you'll ever need. Really, really good stopping power there. Just while we're stuck in a bit of traffic, another thing to talk about here is build quality. I'm really, really impressed with how this all comes together. It's obvious to me that they haven't just spent a bunch of money on the engine and forgotten about everything else. All the switchgear is really neatly laid out. Everything's got a high quality finish on it. And the paint, you probably can't pick it up from the picture, but the paint's got this gorgeous green flake through it. It's kind of thick, and when the sun hits it, it just gleams off. And then you've got that wild front end, which is unmistakably H2. Like I said before, it just feels like a very special, unique motorcycle. Now, I know Kawasaki doesn't care about selling a lot of these bikes. They've said up front. This is more of an engineering achievement, bit of a marketing piece to show what Kawasaki's capable of. But I'm just thinking, if I was in the market for a high-end sports tourer, is this special enough to steer me away from, you know, a Kawasaki 1400, a Hayabusa, maybe like an R1200 from BMW? Yeah, that's a hard question to answer, I think, because it's kind of in a niche all of its own, you know. It's sort of up around the BMW level for pricing, but, you know, people that are really into their badges will say, oh, but it's Japanese and blah, blah, blah. But then it's in a completely different category to like a Hayabusa or a Kawasaki 1400 in terms of exclusivity and you know, specialness. So it sort of doesn't compare directly with those either. So I think it's a very cool option if you want to hang on to it for a long time and you want to have something very special that was like a bit of a turning point in the motorcycle world. Because I think we've seen it in the car world, you know, in order to meet stricter and stricter emissions standards, almost all performance cars now are turbocharged. And I have a feeling that bikes are going to go the same way, that forced induction is going to allow them to keep the power levels that we know and love, but also meet these stricter emission standards. So I reckon this thing's a bit of a trailblazer. I reckon in 5 or 10 years there are going to be a lot of supercharged performance bikes, and we'll look back on this bike and go, yeah, that was a cool time. The H2 was the bike that really started that trend. This has been a funny old test ride. Normally I get on a bike, especially now that I've ridden a few, I normally get on a bike and I've got 2 or 3 things to compare it to. It'll feel vaguely familiar, and it's more about differences between models, but this thing is so far out of left field and so different to what I normally ride that I've sort of got to reset my brain a little bit and just try and take it in. Even the Harley guy found it interesting. It's definitely a head turner, this one, folks. Definitely a head turner. So of course I've got to go to a shopping strip to show it off. A few words to try and sum up this machine. Amazingly refined, amazing engineering, but surprisingly comfortable, surprisingly maneuverable, as we found out, and just a real special little something, I think. Like, if you've got a wad of cash burning a hole in your pocket and you want every sports tour to be a real occasion, I think you might have found a new winner in the H2SX. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but my word, it's it's got everything you could ever want, and it does it in a way that is really approachable. Massively impressed. If you've made it this far in the video, thanks so much for watching, guys. It's good to have you along for another test ride. And if you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button down below. I get to do these test rides on a pretty regular basis, so if you hit that subscribe button, you'll get notifications when the newest videos come out. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.